Have you ever met someone who instantly changes the energy in a room? Someone who doesn't just enter a space but fills it with warmth, humor, and presence? That was Tisha Campbell in the 1990s. On television, in movies, or even in casual interviews, she carried a light that made people stop what they were doing just to watch. Her charm wasn't fake, and her laughter wasn't staged. It was magnetic. But while audiences saw the joyful Gina on Martin or the unforgettable Sydney in House Party, there was another side of her life that stayed hidden. Behind the bright smile and effortless acting was a woman carrying experiences that no one cared to ask about, struggles so heavy they could have broken her completely. Before fame, before her name was a household one, Tisha was just a determined young woman in New York, chasing a dream in an industry that was not built to welcome Black actresses. She hustled through auditions, scraped her way into rooms that weren't designed to include her, and fought for roles that were scarce. Her natural gift for performing was undeniable. She had talent that couldn't be taught, a sparkle that made her unforgettable. But even with all that, Hollywood often treated her like she didn't belong, like she was just lucky to even be there. Then came House Party in 1990, a film made on a shoestring budget of $2.5 million that turned into a box office giant, raking in over $26 million. The movie exploded into the culture, and right in the center of it was Tisha. Her dance scene became iconic. Her character was the heart of the story, and her performance was so effortless that audiences felt like they knew her personally. Yet when the paychecks were cut and the taxes, fees, and percentages were taken, she walked away with just $4,000. That was the reality, $4,000 for a role that helped define an entire era of film. While studios and producers celebrated, the people who brought the movie to life, especially the women, were left behind without royalties, bonuses, or even acknowledgement. Tisha didn't complain. She kept moving forward. In those days, especially as a Black woman in the early 90s, speaking out meant risking your entire career. So she pushed through. 2 years later, Martin premiered, and with it, her career reached a new level. Her chemistry with Martin Lawrence as Gina was electric. Together, they became the TV couple everyone rooted for. Funny, stylish, and relatable, they embodied young Black love in a way that was fresh and inspiring. To the audience, it was pure magic. But behind the curtain, Tisha's reality was nothing like what fans imagined. She stepped onto set with a knot in her stomach, hiding tears between takes, forcing herself to perform while quietly enduring mistreatment. Her smile was part of the job, her laughter part of the act. She was carrying a storm inside her, one that no one wanted to acknowledge. On screen, she held the show together emotionally, giving Martin Lawrence the perfect balance to bounce off of. But behind the scenes, she was treated as though she was disposable. Her contributions were minimized, her safety ignored. By season 5, the cracks could no longer be hidden. Fans began noticing her absence from episodes. When she did appear, it was obvious. No scenes with Martin, no shared screen time. Their final episode together was so carefully edited that it was clear they weren't even in the same space. Then came the truth. In 1997, Tisha filed a lawsuit against Martin Lawrence, accusing him of sexual harassment, verbal abuse, and physical intimidation. This wasn't gossip. It wasn't a rumor. It was documented in court, and it was devastating. For years, she had endured an environment where she was ignored when she spoke up, punished when she resisted, and forced to carry the pain alone. Her lawsuit wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. She wasn't trying to ruin anyone's career. She was trying to save her own life. The details she shared were horrifying: unwanted touching, invasive kissing written into scripts, constant verbal degradation. Crew members whispered about what they saw but did nothing. Others turned their heads away. That's how power works. It silences not only the victims, but also the witnesses. Martin Lawrence denied everything, dismissing it as nothing more than a contract dispute. But the truth was visible in the awkward tension of those last episodes, in the silence that followed, and in the way Tisha vanished from the spotlight. The lawsuit was eventually settled out of court, locked away behind a non-disclosure agreement. No justice, no accountability, just silence. Tisha could no longer speak openly about her experience. She couldn't name names, couldn't defend herself against speculation, couldn't tell her truth. Hollywood moved on. Reruns of Martin continued to play, while Tisha faded from the front lines of the industry. She didn't stop working completely, but she was no longer offered the same opportunities. Her voice had been silenced, and with it, her career momentum. Meanwhile, Martin Lawrence spiraled. Fame and pressure took their toll, but after the lawsuit, things grew worse. He was seen running down a Los Angeles street with a gun, shouting incoherently. He collapsed on film sets, clashed with co-stars, and was banned from Saturday Night Live after an offensive monologue. And yet, Hollywood kept cutting him checks. Studios protected the brand, not the people. He still starred in blockbuster films like Bad Boys and Big Mama's House, but the shine was gone. There was a darkness underneath it all. He never apologized publicly. In fact, in a 2020 GQ interview, he brushed off the entire ordeal, saying there was nothing to talk about because it never happened. For Tisha, the silence became its own kind of prison. She raised her family, took smaller roles, and continued to smile in public, but her eyes often told a different story. The pain wasn't just from what she endured, but also from being forced to carry it quietly. It took decades before she began to break that silence. Slowly, through podcasts, interviews, and conversations, she started to open up, not with bitterness, but with bravery. She no longer cared about NDAs or about being labeled difficult. She cared about telling the truth, both for herself and for others who had been silenced. What brought her story full circle wasn't a headline or a press conference, but something much more personal. Reconnecting with her longtime friend and co-star, Tichina Arnold, who played Pam on Martin. The two had met as teenagers, struggling actresses in New York, sharing apartments, meals, and dreams. Fame had strained their bond, and the lawsuit years created a silence between them. But when Tisha went through her divorce in 2020, she realized what she was missing wasn't roles or money. It was connection. She called Tichina, simply saying she missed her. Tichina replied, "Come over." Just like that, their friendship was rebuilt, stronger than before. Together, they became partners in advocacy, showing up for causes like mental health awareness and supporting young Black women in entertainment. Tisha no longer needed the industry's permission to speak. She took ownership of her story. Every interview, every public appearance, every workshop was more than personal. It was collective. She reminded the world that what she endured wasn't unique. She wasn't an exception. She was an example. For every woman silenced in the industry, Tisha became proof that survival is possible and that speaking up is powerful, even if it takes decades. Martin Lawrence may never admit to what happened. He may never apologize, but that's no longer the point. Tisha doesn't need his words to validate her truth. Her healing isn't dependent on his remorse. When they reunited publicly during the Martin reunion special in 2022, the smiles were polite, the words careful. She said they had forgiven each other. But forgiveness in her case didn't mean forgetting. It meant freedom. Today at 55, Tisha Campbell is no longer defined by the roles that once made her famous. She is a survivor, a mother, a mentor, and an advocate. She is a woman who endured fire and emerged not untouched, but unbroken. She once promised herself that if she ever had a second chance, she would never stay silent again. And she has kept that promise. Every time she shares her story, she chips away at the culture that once silenced her. Every woman who listens to her knows they are not alone. Every young actress stepping onto a set now has a blueprint for courage. Tisha Campbell's legacy isn't just Gina Waters from Martin. It isn't only Sydney from House Party. Her real legacy is her voice, the voice she reclaimed for herself, and, in doing so, handed to countless others who thought they had none. After years of silence, she made sure her truth was not just heard, but deeply felt. And that, more than anything, will be the story she leaves behind. That wraps things up. See you soon.